Hello, World Wide Web. I'm Shado, the internet personality with the best hair. Holy fuck! It's week 5 of... Oh yeah.
The Summer of Hell fucking Raiser!
While the theatrical releases of Hellraiser started strong and slowly descended into mediocrity, the same can't be said for the straight-to-video releases, which didn't even start as Hellraiser films. As it happens, Inferno was written as a spec script for Dimension Films and didn't include the Cenobites or Pinhead at all originally. The thing was, the studio had realized it had been a while since its last Hellraiser movie, so just slap Pinhead in there and it'll work out fine. Right? That's pretty much all they did, as the script, while containing a deep psychological horror vibe throughout, does not feel at all like a Hellraiser movie. Hellraiser Inferno is like that sandwich you have after the Thanksgiving of horror, containing slices of Silent Hill with Hellraiser sauce, held together with slices of psychological crime drama bread, and it comes with a side order of Twilight Zone dressing. Fuck, I'm hungry today. Nevertheless, first and foremost, this is a crime drama following the story of Detective Joseph Thorne and his descent into madness as the supernatural takes over his mind. Oh, and there are Cenobites and Pinhead, too. So let's dig into Hellraiser Inferno and... Oh, fuck it, let's just get this over with. We open to an actual background to the opening credits. Wow, after so many movies with just plain white text on a black backdrop, this is a welcome improvement. Even if it does look like something that the Virtual Boy shat out. We start abruptly, immediately establishing the main character, Joseph Thorne, played by Chris Sheffer, who you may recognize from Nightbreed. We see in mere seconds that he is a super genius, thanks to his epic chess-playing skills, made all the more impressive considering he spends the rest of his time killing his brain cells. This is basically all you need to know about his character. He's a douchebag, and he likes to monologue. A lot.
Even as a little kid, I was always one to examine things closely. The world was full of riddles and mysteries and puzzles.
In case you feel like I'm being too hard on him, don't worry. There are plenty of examples of him being a douchebag as the movie progresses. Jumping right to the scene of a crime, we are introduced to his partner, Detective Tony Ninonen, played by Nicholas Tortoro, who is in NYPD Blue and The Longest Yard. Oh, fuck this. It's obvious to the audience why this body is in pieces with hooks, but the genius detective is having a hard time figuring out that he's in a Hellraiser movie. Besides, he's got more important things at hand. You know what? I think I'm going to need a douchebag counter for this guy. That's better. Moving on, he discovers a kid's finger in the candle. And then... stealing money from a dead guy's wallet! And for the fuck of it, he steals the puzzle box from evidence as well. Then returns home long enough to establish he has a wife and daughter, so he can abandon them in favor of having sex with a random hooker.
But if she doesn't know, if doing this keeps me coming back, then who is to say what's right and what's wrong?
Who he pays with the stolen money, and then they share the stolen drugs. However, I don't think that those can go into the douchebag count, considering they're just the culmination of things that already went into the douchebag count. And no matter how good those drugs are, he still paid way too much for this sex scene, which is the most disappointing of the Hellraiser franchise thus far. I don't even have to censor or creatively edit it for YouTube. Especially considering when he awakens the next day, he's still got his pants on. That's, not how sex works. Thorne gets up to go to the bathroom, no doubt to steal the hotel towels, and while he's in there, he does what I've been begging for this whole time, and decides to try his hand at solving the lament configuration. Yes. Yes. Do it. Alright, now Pinhead's gonna come out and... any time now. We're waiting. Perhaps in an attempt to locate Pinhead, Thorne walks out into the hallway, but is himself discovered by the Wire Twin Cenobites, who look, pretty damn good. I mean, they're simple in design, I suppose, but they actually do look like legitimate Cenobites. I was half expecting this movie to give us, like, the Super Nintendo Cenobite. Okay, I complained about the sex scene earlier, but this is not an improvement. Despite being an unrepentant douchebag, as we've already established, Thorn can't ignore a small child's cry for help. Hearing one, he rejects the opportunity for kinky three-way Cenobite sex, only to have him run into the newly remodeled Chatterer Cenobite. And then... Yes! Finally! It's a tad ironic, I suppose. What just happened? No, hold on. What the fuck just happened? Why aren't you dead? Perhaps he has a fate worse than death. He has to go to work. While there, he gets a call from his hooker from last night. Nice of her to keep in touch. He must have done a better job than it looked. See, this is why the sadomasochistic phone sex line never took off. Learning the horror that befell his last fuck. Aside from him, he convinces his partner to help cover his ass by wiping down the crime scene to remove all evidence that Thorn was there. No word on what he's gonna do about the semen in the sheets, though. But first, it's a day that ends in Y, so it's time to steal something. But if he's gonna get away with this, he's going to need another suspect.
Inside, Sunrise Motel. Somebody hung her in a shower like a piece of meat.
Now that that's taken care of, they find that there is another child's finger at the scene of the crime. This doesn't progress the investigation, though, so Thorn asks how things are going running the prints from the puzzle box that he stole, and nobody seems to have noticed. Or perhaps they just don't care. However, he feels that the computer could be going faster with its Google search.
Come on, detective. Let's not waste my time.
Super genius Thorn happens to be far better at this than the specialist, surprise, surprise, and in seconds they find a match. Thus, it's on to the lead to get to the bottom of this, and up the douchebag count some more.
What? So are you gonna frisk me or fuck me?
Well, given the options.
Hey, if you keep that up, I'm gonna give you your own douchebag count.
Oh, I'm so scared.
Oh, come on! Nevertheless, this gives him the information he needs to press his snitch. / drug dealer.
She got a lot. Fucking birthdays.
That's right.
Anyway, he asks him about the man he learned about in the last scene.
Does he work for the engineer?
Who? I don't know, no engineer.
Ah! He doesn't know. Well, we all know where this is going.
I don't know, no engineer.
To be fair, they did establish that the Ice Cream Man is a pedophile. Of course, Thorn, you ever heard the term two wrongs don't make a right? How about police brutality, or due process? A few kicks in the ass later, and Bernie, played by Nicholas Sadler, spills the beans, telling the sad, sad story about a man who fell in love with one of the engineer's hookers, but the engineer didn't care for endings quite that happy, and killed the fuck out of her. So, now that story time is over, you could slow down just a little bit. The movie's not even half over, you know. Or not, as his partner wants to come clean about wiping down the crime scene, so our good old thorn in his side rubs it in about how you planted incriminating evidence, and Tony is now the prime suspect.
As anyone knows, I am nothing if not a loyal partner. You have 2 years in the precinct. How do you think they're gonna believe, me or you?
As this does nothing to progress the investigation, Deus Ex Nates walks in the door providing a videotape. Playing it right there in the middle of the bar, it turns out to be Bernie getting murdered with a hooked whip by... No, you lick the finger and then go tss. Okay, hold on. What the fuck? cream with $100 bills! Unfortunately, when he gets around to showing it to the rest of the guys, the tape magically erased itself. So they're just going to have to take him at his word. Therefore, the chief decides he needs to take a seat with the resident shrink. Steven Spielberg? Oh, excuse me, James Remar, who plays Dr. Paul Gregory. I was worried for a second I was going to end up with a bunch of angry comments about how he killed that Triceratops. While this works to introduce the character, unfortunately he has nothing to offer the plot just yet, so Thorne reschedules his own evaluation for tomorrow just like that. More importantly, they've found his snitch, or what's left of him, and it matches exactly with what Thorne had said.
It was on the fucking videotape!
Could have just waited for them to find it. It's not like no one was ever going to check the cash register, but sure, go ahead and further incriminate yourself. It's not like I give a fuck about you. From the clues gathered, Thorne believes he can find the engineer before the engineer finds him, and heads down to the 1800s?
Are you the engineer?
You flatter me, sir.
Okay, so aside from his general douchiness, we did establish that he was a super genius along the way as well, right? I mean, why bother when his investigative skills can't even keep up with Dora the Explorer? Predictably, he learns nothing, and is distracted by another cameo appearance of No-Face. Just as foreseeable, he can't catch up with the guy, and instead gets his ass kicked by ninja cowboys? Wait, how the fuck did we get here? This is like getting beat up by the Blue Thong Gay stripper moment. Don't worry though, his partner saves him. I'm sure he'll say thank you.
Turn it off!
Oh well. Instead of going to the hospital, Thorne demands to go back to the precinct, as, after all, he needs to talk to the shrink about the engineer.
Do you know what I'm talking about?
Oh, please, continue.
Answer my question!
As this is a second scene with him in it, we can go ahead and assume that Dr. Gregory is important to the plot. And that doesn't spoil anything at all. Nope. They talk a bit about the engineer, where word on the street is he has godlike powers. This just to reintroduce the Lament configuration, and ignore that this is clear evidence that Thorne stole this evidence from evidence. Point is, they mention how weird the box behaved in this movie.
So if you're saying they left you behind, and you're still seeing them, then maybe they're still here.
Ah! Clues as subtle as sriracha in the eyes. Now that that's over with, he can seek medical attention. Of course, that would be the smart thing to do, so instead he just goes home to annoy his family for a while. But a random call from his mother about being visited by the engineer causes him to spring to action. Upon arriving, it looks like his parents are perfectly fine. However, when he pulls his gun on the supernatural doorway, things take a turn for the worse. Fortunately, it looks like he was allowed to continue from his most recent checkpoint. However, in this playthrough, they aren't waiting for him, probably because they've been pureed. More importantly, he finds a note from the engineer. And when you've been explicitly told that the engineer is playing a game with you, why wouldn't you go to the exact address he specifies? But first, he sees his partner, so one for the road.
You need help, Joe?
Go to hell.
In a completely unforeseeable twist, it turns out that going exactly where the engineer wanted was playing right into his hand! Imagine that. So Tony is killed at the hands of No-Face right before Thorne gets a call. From the engineer. And if it turns out to be one of the engineers from Prometheus, I'm going to be doubly disappointed.
I want you to go home, detective. Time to go home.
Because following his exact orders worked out so well last time. We learned that while he was out, the engineer installed an industrial-strength air conditioner in Thorne's home. Oh, and his wife and daughter were horrifyingly frozen to death.
Welcome home, Detective.
And Steven Spielberg was the engineer all along. Didn't see that coming. Exposition dump time as he explains that the kid's finger at Tony's murder didn't have the print burnt off, and it turns out the print is an exact match to Thorne.
I don't understand.
Psychological supernatural horror, it doesn't have to make sense. We also get reminded that yes, this is a Hellraiser movie, as the engineer is actually Pinhead. But this wasn't a Hellraiser movie, so he doesn't rip the man apart, instead telling him to return to his childhood home, which, conveniently enough, happens to be right through a nearby supernatural doorway. I know he's in a state of confusion, but should I count him pointing that shotgun at his child self on the douchebag counter? Even accidentally? His nostalgic tour is cut a tad short when a couple decades rumble by, revealing his parents are home and have had their eyes gouged out. That's it? And considering the wellspring of blood and the screaming and crying earlier, I kind of thought that Pinhead was at least performing a root canal. Whoa, hold on, did he just shoot his own mother? Okay, yeah, he did. I know she was blind and brandishing a knife at you at the time, but come on, man, that's gonna have to go on the douchebag counter. Well, I'm sure he can talk this over with... but the prostitute still likes... maybe his partner can talk some sense into... Oh, son of a bitch, stop! Jeez! There was one more scene where he shot another specter of Bernie, but in that one, he was actually actively attacking him with a hooked whip. And in all the others, even if they had been attacking him at some point, he waited until after they stopped before shooting them. They're, nice and completely defenseless then. Friggin' douchebag. He finally ends up in a dark room where he learns that the faceless killer is himself. If this is too confusing for you, don't worry. Pinhead comes out to explain to the audience that it's a metaphor. This has all been about punishing Joseph for all the people he hurt, as, wouldn't you know it, he's kind of a douchebag.
Welcome to hell.
Yes! Finally! He's deserved to die, I'll move. No! Oh, don't tell me it was all just a dream, no!
Detective Thorne.
It's Daphne.
Oh, thank you. Jeez. Pinhead also, there are other phone calls he could get that work a little better in hell.
Detective Thorne.
I don't know who you are. I don't know what you want. I will find you. And I will kill you.
No! Don't do that! Therefore, he's trapped in here, forever to be very indirectly and minorly tortured by Pinhead's incredibly convoluted punishment.
I lived in a world of facts, of a reality that I thought I understood.
Did he really just end the movie on monologuing? Well, that was different. So different, it feels distinctly like a genre of film I haven't touched in the 120 some odd reviews I've done. Even being a Hellraiser movie smack dab in the middle of the summer of Hellraiser. Of course, that's not to say it's horrendous. The story is not particularly complicated, and it seems to draw inspiration from many sources, most notably Silent Hill, and the ending gives one hell of a Twilight Zone vibe. Honestly, there isn't much in this film that really feels like Hellraiser material, which is a shame because what little there was of it, it actually worked. Mainly, this is a psychological horror mystery, but as with many movies that try for mystery, the lack of red herrings make the twists painfully obvious well in advance. Also, Thorne's convenient rewind of events in the middle of the movie makes it easy to predict the twist ending. However, the acting at work is good, and I have to say, most of the problems I have watching it came from it being a genre I generally don't touch on, and the fact that I fucking hated the protagonist. It's kind of obvious I was supposed to dislike him, but I spent 90 minutes wanting to see him get killed by Cenobites, only to find out that he's already in the most indirect personal hell I've seen. Overall, Hellraiser Inferno is a black sheep that didn't feel much like a Hellraiser movie at all, and as a psychological horror mystery, it's pretty lacking in suspense and surprises. However, decent acting and some well-directed sequences keep it entertainingly creepy enough to come in at 2 hideously sexy Cenobites out of 5. Some of you out there might actually enjoy it quite a bit more than I did, it's just not for me. Thank you all for watching, I've been Shado, and remember, some consider Hellraiser Inferno to be one of the high points in the sequels. Son of a bitch. No. No. No, I can't do this anymore, I can't do it! I can't, just 1 week, just give me 1 week! 1 week, that's all I have, 1 week, is that too much?
Haven't I earned my money yet?